Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Trails Radio Show. Thank you for joining us today. Join me and my special guest, musician Mr. Bruce L Warden, in a few minutes. Thanks.
For him to tell me that you might even give me a call, I was totally surprised. So this is an honor to me, so thank you much.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, let's get started. My first question to you is, how did your career begin as a musician? Where did it all begin for you?
Well, actually, I'm a kid from South Beloit, Illinois. At the age of 9, my dad and mother saw that I had an unbelievable, shall we say, musical interest. And there was a fellow that by the name of Boyd who had the music store in Beloit, Wisconsin, was around the area, and he was checking for new students. This is really funny. He came to our house and knocked on the door and introduced himself, and Dad let him in. And he said, "I'm giving musical talent tests." So he had me to sit down, and he laid a guitar across my lap and told me to put a bar across the neck at a certain place and then strum it. He had me do it 2 or 3 times. He looked at me in the face and said, "You got talent." I couldn't believe it. When I look back on it now, what a funny scene that could have been. But what's funny is I looked up at him, I said, "You got anything else in this?" I was never interested in strings. My dad did play a wild electric guitar and a violin, and he taught himself how to play. So therefore, there was musical interest in our family, but I never went to strings. So they said, "Well, we have accordion." Who would ever believe that that's what I've been for the last, off and on for the last 40-some years. But anyway, I started taking lessons at 9. And then in 7th grade, the music band director came over to our school, our middle school, and was going to start a feeder into the high school, because the high school did not have a band at that particular time period. And so I took up trumpet, and because I was already able to read music, it came fast to me. Embouchure was fine. And so when we were in 8th grade, we were one of the few kids that was put in the band because they needed bodies. It's just that simple. But we all, the ones that we were there, we were able to read, and we were able to help the band in that process. My wife of 60 years, she was actually flute, and she was across what we called on Collie Hill, that was the other side of South Beloit. And so she came in the 8th grade situation. They had us to be measured up for cadet uniforms and everything for that band situation. And so then the next 4 years in high school, I played trumpet. In the meantime, we started our little, shall I say, jazz band, because our South Beloit did not have any such thing as a jazz band. And there were 3 of us, and the older fellow, John Friedel, he stopped me in the hall one day. He said, "Hey, you want to start a band?" This was not part of my mind, nor part of my thinking, nor part of my wanting to become a musician or involved in the musical field. I never realized how much this changed my life in high school. So anyway, we got the bright idea. There was a freshman fella named Tom Lamb that he wanted to play drums, so we got in touch with him, and we would go over to his house and practice in this little tiny apartment building. It was less than a one-car garage. And this is where I started my actually musical interest and musical career. And all of a sudden, on another wonderful story, on December 4th, I remember December 4th, 1955, was our first job at the high school. Mm-hmm. In Illinois here, in that time period, there's snow on the ground, it's cold, typical winter. So Tom had left his drums. In fact, his mother and dad for Christmas had got him a new pair of Slingerland. And at the same time, they wanted to give it to him because he was going to be playing this new job. And so they had it set up in the front room. So John Friedel came across, picked me up because I wasn't able to drive yet. And we went over to Tom's house, and all of a sudden Tom realized, I ain't got no keys to get in the house. Well, here he was dressed in picture this, he was dressed in a pastel blue suit, white tie, white buck shoes. I mean, we were in the 50s like you can't believe. And so he ended up having to undress outside in moonlight and climbed in through the basement door in his underwear to come up to finally get into the house. All of a sudden we saw him at the front window hollering, "Hey guys, I'm over here now." So that's how we started our musical, shall we say, jazz band career of the three, and we called ourselves the Three Squares at that particular time. Where we got the slight idea. We had 3 gold squares on the homemade stands that we made, and we ended up playing, I bet, every dance that South Point High School had for the next 2 or 3 years of time. I mean, we were from one extreme to another, from nothing to all of a sudden the success that we worked and worked and worked. So, but that's how I got started. So I left high school and ended up finally getting to Southern Illinois University. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, I had a chance to become part of interest in the musical field at the college, I should say at the university, and being in the Air Force Reserve thing, we were able to put together a thing called a Review in Blue, and we actually built a whole musical program for a Saturday night for the whole university. And I had the chance to, by this time I'd put together a couple groups in college, and we were going to be the featured band the last 20 minutes of the show. So it gave me a chance to really express, and finally I was involved in music. So the last year we were at Southern, by this time I was doing teaching and being sort of a salesperson at a Ewell music store in here in Illinois. And a fellow named Hank Wright, he was the next thing to Hank Snow, like you couldn't believe. He had a show on the radio station in Heron from 6 in the morning till 10 in the morning. And that show, he would play live and sing and talk and what have you. So he came in the music store and he said, "Hey, bro," he said, "you want to go to the inauguration?" I said, "You're kidding me, Hank. What are you talking about?" Well, he said, "Senator Symington called me, and he wants a musical group, me and guitar and something else," and I was singing an accordion. Well, there's no accordions in Southern Illinois. I was the only accordion that I knew from East St. Louis clear to Paducah, Kentucky, because I worked that whole area, and I was the only accordion player in that area. But anyway, so I said, "I'll try and see if I can get off of school." My wife let me go. School said, "You can take care of your studies or what have you when you get back." So we left Olney, Illinois, and went clear to Baltimore, Maryland by train. We played in the club car that night. We did a concert at the Emerson Hotel downtown Baltimore that night. The next day, we went down to Washington, and we were part of the musical thing at the Senate building, where the Senate building had the Illinois delegation and a few other things. And so I had the chance to play for them. And in the process, Senator Dirksen at the time, his wife wanted to sing a song called "Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing," because Lyndon B. Johnson's wife was Lady Bird, okay? Mm-hmm. So she started to sing, and she was better than a half note out of tune. Well, you can't do anything with an accordion in regards to that. So consequently, I just smiled and kept going until we got done, and everybody liked it. You know how you can get by in the music business. So later on, we went over to the House of Representatives, and we played for, at this time, a lady by the name of Marjorie Lawrence from the Metropolitan Opera House was at the cocktail party. And so we played the cocktail party for Congressman Kenneth Gray, get it right, from Southern Illinois. And so when we finished, he asked, "Is you guys going to inaugural ball?" We said, "Oh, you're kidding me. We can't. We don't close nothing." He was going to get us tuxedos and give us limousine service, and we turned him down. We thought we were just imposing too much. And to this very day, I've kicked myself ever since for not being able to have that possibility. But that was my college situation, my time there, predominantly with my accordion. So I came back to Rockford, Illinois. In the process, I met a wonderful man who we later stayed together for 40-some years in the having bands or what have you. Frank Gazzardo was his name. And he was at a music store. And I came in one day and he said, "Hey, Bruce, you want to work 6 nights a week?" I said, "Frank, there ain't nothing in Rockford." He said, "Oh, yes, there is." he says, my boss, Mr. Nielsen, is going to be the musical person that hires the people. And he didn't tell me what it is, but he said, we got to learn 1920 Dixieland-style type songs, and we got to audition for him. I said, okay. By this time, I had been fooling with piano in college a little bit, but I did not consider myself a piano player or anything of that sort. But we learned 6 songs, like Hello, Bye Baby, and I'm trying to think of something else, and Grand Old Flag, and those kinds of songs. So we went in, and we auditioned for Mr. Nielsen, and he said, yep, you guys got the Sunday and Monday. It wasn't 6 nights. Okay. So it came time we find out that the place is called Shakey's Pizza Parlor. And they had come into Rockford. So they finally built the building, got everything all done. And the end result is that they were going to have a grand opening. They sent out invitations to the mayor, the alderman, you name it. Everybody was there that night. It was over 500 people. And so a little fellow by the name of Johnny Perazzo was going to be the banjo player, and a fellow named Floyd Burke was going to be playing piano. So Johnny got there about this is another wonderful story, got there about 7:15, and still on the stage, and Floyd didn't show at 7:30, he was supposed to start playing, and it was 7:45. So Johnny looks at, he says, nuts, he ain't here, I'm leaving. So Johnny leaves, because he was a real flaky type guy in the first place. But anyway, he leaves, and here Tom Sullivan, the owner of the place, says, what am I going to do? I got no music. He calls up Frank at the music store, says, Frank, you got to do something. So Frank called me, and he said, Bruce, get over there, play anything you can think of so I can close the music store and get down there. By the time 12:30 came, we were the heroes. We got the 5 nights a week for the next 5 years. That's how I learned how to play piano. So it gave me the chance to, shall we say, work out things and learn what to do, what not to do. And over 5 years of time, it became a pretty nominal thing. All of a sudden, people didn't know me as an accordion player anymore. They knew me as a piano player. And so that's what got that started. So let me think what we got here. So in the process of this Frank and I being together, just before the shaky thing started, we had a fellow from Beloit, Wisconsin. His name was Mike Wolf. Mike was putting together a 5-piece show band. How he found my name, I do not remember. But he called me, and he said, are you interested? Well, I said, what the deal is. And I told him about my buddy. He said, well, bring him along, such and such. So since I could play trumpet, and Frank could play trumpet, plus guitar, plus banjo, he was a very, very good musician, we were able to do a 3-trumpet idea and what have you. And so we were having trouble with our drummers because the first 2 were drafted right from us. So I get over there on a Thursday night, and Mike says to me, we're okay. We got a guy here, he's 4F, he ain't going to leave us. So it's funny. His first name was Gary. So anyway, we start working, and what's funny is Gary had on his left hand, his fingers were just a little bit shorter than normal. In fact, they were about 1 inch long. He could hold a drumstick, and he could play exceedingly well. He knew how to sing. He could do impersonations. I'm talking about Gary Berghoff. MASH.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So what's funny is Gary was with us for almost a year, and we worked the whole southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois area, predominantly around the Lake Geneva, which is a monstrous area for the Chicago people that come out and go to resorts and such. And so in the process, we were working in February downtown, and if you know what Lake Geneva is like in the wintertime, it's a ghost town. There's nothing there. We played 4 nights in a row, 6 inches of snow on the ground. Not a soul came in, and we were playing for gate. So we decided, you know what, this ain't going to work. So in the meantime, Gary found out he wanted to go back to New York. And he wanted to have Frank and myself to go with him, but we both had families, and we had no way of doing that. So Gary went back. 30 days later, he auditioned for You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and got the lead. And that's what put him on, shall we say, in the limelight from the standpoint of being an actor. And so he was doing that for over a year in Broadway. So then he went to Los Angeles, and they shopped him there, and Epic Records and what have you, and Columbia, and the rest is history. X many years So that was an interesting thing. But in the process,